Hi, I'm Liron Cohen.
And I'm Mimi Torchin.
And you're listening to Lady Parts TV, the podcast.
Whee!
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to our podcast. How are you all doing?
Hello.
We are going to tell you about some really fun things that we watched in the last couple of weeks.
I don't know if you can call all of them fun.
No, they're not necessarily fun, but they really, I think all of them we binged in a matter of a couple of days.
And are great. I'm still watching one of them.
So we'll start with the stats. We tallied 45 primetime shows, out of which written by women 25, which is 55%, directed 14, which is 31%, which was even worse just a few days ago. We luckily watched a few things that raised it up, but I was worried for a second that there was going to be like 10%.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It wasn't a great week for women.
We'll start
couple of weeks.
Yeah, a couple of weeks. Thank you for joining us, by the way, last weekend for a fun, interactive lesbians in movies and TV Valentine's Day Q&A thing. We had a lot of fun, and if you did too, then we'd love to do it again sometime. We'll start by telling you about a new documentary series, which we actually already had the great privilege of watching a month ago, and we've been dying to tell you about it. It's called Visible, out on TV. It's a 5-episode docuseries on Apple TV+. It will be available, very fittingly, on Valentine's Day, February 14th. All 5 episodes, which is something that Apple TV+ actually doesn't do usually. They do one a week.
Weekly.
Yeah, but I guess they just wanted people to be able to enjoy it all at once, and I appreciate that. It was executive produced by Ryan White, Jessica Hargrave, Wanda Sykes, and Wilson Cruz, and directed by Ryan White. And it is a 5-episode series about really the evolution of representation of gay and lesbian and bi and trans and queer in general representations in TV. And it does such a fantastic job at really doing it in a really comprehensive look. I mean, they did a brilliant job.
And highly entertaining as well.
Highly entertaining and very well organized, because really it's a lot. But they organized it by theme. So every episode had a theme. For example, there was the HIV/AIDS era theme episode. They combine archival footage, really fantastic archival footage, and just the rights to all of these
amazing
clips cost them a lot of money, I'm sure. And they combine them with interviews with prominent figures from our history, the likes of Ellen DeGeneres, Wanda Sykes, Janet Mock, Wilson Cruz, and many both behind the scenes and in front of the camera, people who really some of them I didn't even know about because they were before my time, and even though I knew generally, I didn't know the whole story. I
knew a little bit more about those.
You did.
Those oldies but goodies.
It was just, I couldn't stop. I just wanted to immerse myself in it because it was just such a, I don't know about you, but I'm really into the history of our community.
Yes, me too.
And
very much so into the history and the evolution of representation in film and television, which I have been immersed in my entire life.
Right, and that's that intersection between the two, and you really, I think, even get a better understanding of yourself and your own evolution, because when you think about it, I mean, for me anyway, I grew up side by side with television and movies were my window to the world, and I think for a lot of us that's been the case.
Absolutely, and you were very impressionable.
I still am.
Yes, you are.
So it's a very fascinating look at American history and American television and the evolution of our community's place in history. So we highly, highly, highly recommend it. Again, the production
really
values
enjoy
are.
It. You will.
It's top notch.
Yes.
Yes, you will learn things, and
it's quite illuminating.
And you will be moved, and you will be angry at times.
Well, we're angry all the time about something or other.
So we really, really recommend it. Visible, out on TV, on Apple TV Plus, on Valentine's Day, 5 episodes. Watch it.
And don't worry about Apple TV; they can afford those clips. This is a new movie called Waiting for Anya. It starts in theaters and probably mostly on demand February the 7th.
Which means it's already out and available to you on demand and in digital.
It was written and directed by Ben Cookson, and it was adapted from a novel by the author of Warhorse, Michael Morpurgo, whose name actually doesn't ring a bell, but certainly Warhorse does. Mm-hmm. It's starring Noah Schnapp from Stranger Things as the young shepherd boy, Angelica Houston, Jean Reno, many other people, a few whom you might recognize. And it takes place during World War II in a small French village on the border of Spain. The Pyrenees are their border. The main story is about, the whole story really is about a widow, Angelica Houston, who with the help of a shepherd boy and others, hides Jewish children and helps them escape over the Pyrenees into Spain. It gets harder when they are occupied for a small reason. They are occupied by Germans.
By Nazis. Yeah. Let's call them what they are.
Let's call them what they are, by Nazis. And,
which also, by the way, adds an interesting element to the story because it's about also the relationship of these Nazis who just have to live there in the middle of this tiny village and the connections that are formed.
It sort of becomes symbiotic in a way. It's a really wonderful movie. It's gorgeous to look at. The scenery is absolutely breathtaking. It's very moving. The acting is very good. I think if you are a fan of Holocaust movies or the
that sounds so funny.
I know, of course, that's why I said
it. I mean, if you're
the Second
into,
World War,
if those movies speak to you and fascinate you, which they do to us,
this movie is a beautiful gem. I really loved it.
Yeah, I think the point of view is very different from what we usually get. And don't worry, there's nothing too gruesome. It's not actually taking place in a camp or anything like that. It's about the people on the fringes and the little ways where people managed to help. That many of which and whom we don't know about. So it's always fascinating.
Thousands and thousands of people, especially children, alive because of the efforts of other Germans or French or people who resisted against the Nazis. And that's
what's fascinating because we only hear about the big, the people who smuggled thousands, right? But it's always, I think, good to see or to hear a story about, again, those little acts of heroism. And people put a lot on the line.
They certainly did.
To help one person, I find that admirable and touching. And
it's a beautiful film. I highly recommend it. It's called Waiting for Anya. Out now. Now, here's a series that I have been consumed with. I could have probably sat down and watched all 10 episodes at one time. It's called The Outsider. It's Sundays on HBO, based on the novel by Stephen King, just to give you a little idea of what it might be like, and created by the wonderful Richard Price. Starring Yul Vasquez, Ben Mendelsohn, Julianne Nicholson, Mar Winningham, Cynthia Erivo, Jason Bateman, who also directed several episodes. A lot of people who you will recognize who are staples of television and film. It is a combination of a murder mystery, a police procedural, and, of course, being Stephen King, the supernatural. And we're not exactly sure what the supernatural is, but we sure know it exists. Children in particular are being murdered, and they find DNA and fingerprints and all kinds of evidence on the bodies, while at the same time, the same person has an airtight alibi miles and miles away, also with examples of samples of DNA often, fingerprints, videotapes, witnesses. So therein lies the conundrum of how can this be? What is it? As the show goes on, you do gradually realize that it's something supernatural. At first, I thought it was outer space because something drips on the neck of a couple of people, and they develop these rashes that make.
So why? That's why you have the rash at the back of your neck.
Stop! I've had it for years. I haven't killed anybody yet
that we know of.
the people who get this rash, not all of them have murdered anybody, but they sort of will do anything that this voice or inside their head tells them to do, and then there's relief from the itching and the pain of the rash. So there are several elements. Cynthia Erivo is fascinating as someone who's seemingly on the spectrum, as an investigator who is a brilliant private investigator and has a very open mind to everything, which is why she's so good besides being smart. And she's working with the sheriff or the police chief of this small town to help figure out what the hell's going on. And I'm on, I think, 7, and they're just starting to get an idea that there's something strange going on. And believe me, if you ever have any fear of on a dark night seeing a stranger with a hoodie covering their face pretty much, you will, that will be doubled, tripled, or quadrupled after seeing this. It's very good. The acting is terrific. The storytelling is very, very good. I'm sure Stephen King, who is not often translated well to screen or the big screen or the small screen, it's moody. It's beautifully shot. It's extremely compelling, and I love it, and I highly recommend it to you if this is something that's in your wheelhouse.
So we've come to it a little later. It's already on there.
It's already been on for a while.
So if you haven't been watching, you can always go to HBO Go and just watch the whole thing.
I'm just finishing episode 7, and that's where it stops. Yeah. So it's
almost over now. 10 episodes.
3 more episodes, but it's still fresh and it's out there.
Okay, now we have 2 British shows to tell you about. 2 British shows that we pretty much binged on. The first is called The Stranger. It is a show, actually all 8 episodes are on Netflix right now, but it is a British show, but I guess it's a co-production with Netflix. And it's based on the novel by Harlan Coben. Many of you will know him. And I think Mimi is now going to start looking into his novels.
Now I know him. I'm going to absolutely start digging into them immediately.
It's starring some fabulous people, Richard Armitage, Siobhan Finneran, whom you probably know from Downton Abbey, as well as she played Sarah Lancashire's sister on Happy Valley.
Happy Valley. Very memorable performance.
Very. Hannah John Kamen, Dervla Kerwin, Jennifer Saunders, a great surprise to all of you.
Jennifer Saunders.
Many. It's a big ensemble cast, and they all play a very important role in this very intricate web that Harlan Coben brought together and wove. Yes, wove. And it's about really about this small town close to Manchester, or suburb, or I don't know, that is apparently full of secrets, and a couple
as are all small towns,
the whole world, I think. And these 2 girls who decide to expose these secrets, and
sometimes for money, sometimes
for a higher purpose.
A higher purpose.
It twists and it turns pretty much from the first second to the last second.
To the last second.
And that is why you just can't stop watching. We watched 2 at one day, and then the next day we watched 6 the rest of them. It's a perfect show to spend just a rainy day or whatever, just in bed watching from beginning to end. It will
fascinate you, and the lengths people will go to hide their secrets and what these secrets are.
Right. And they're all connected. It's all connected. It's a really, I admire brains that are able, it always reminds me of Carrie Matheson in that first season of Homeland with that wall.
That wall.
I think of Harlan Coben, just putting that wall.
I'm sure that's what he did. I said that
how
to
can
you.
you keep up with it?
Filled with strings and cards.
It's amazing. It's a fantastic show, and it is available in full because it's a really, truly bingeable show. I can't imagine waiting a week between episodes.
I don't know how we didn't just sit and do it at once.
Because we couldn't, but once we could, we did. So it's called The Stranger. It is on Netflix now. And the second British show, I don't really know how to tell you where to watch it. It's called Gold Digger. It's 6 episodes. It's a miniseries. I don't think it will be continued to a second season. It It aired on BBC One in November of 2019. I think it's available on BBC One on demand in other ways if you're in Britain, but it is available in other places. I mean, we know about it because my parents found it in Israel. So it's obviously, you have to look for it and find it somewhere. We really, really recommend that you do. It was written by Marnie Dickens, and it's starring the wonderful, fabulous, gorgeous Julia Ormond, who I have to take a second and just thank her for just being naturally beautiful, not messing with any body part. She looks gorgeous and she looks real. And that is such a breath of fresh air in this culture. Real. It's just, and she's so beautiful, and she's such a wonderful actress.
Oh, I love her so much.
I just enjoy just watching her do her thing.
Anything.
It also stars Ben Barnes, Sebastian Armesto, Jemima Rooper, Alex Jennings.
Who you will know from every British show you've ever watched, especially period pieces.
He always looks like the male version of Celia Emery to me. I don't know why. He just looks like he could be her brother, right? Celia Emery.
Doesn't have anything to do with anything, but it's true.
Anyway, Julia Ormond, a 60-year-old woman, recently divorced and just turning 60, right? She has 3 grown-up children. Well, one of them, grown-up could be debatable talking about him.
Exactly.
Her daughter actually is a lesbian, and there is a storyline also about that. And she is recently divorced from a marriage that was tumultuous, and she falls in love, and more importantly, somebody else falls in love with her. He's a very young man, and now by saying a very young man, they don't
30s.
like late 30s. I mean, they got nothing. They got nothing over our age difference. So we always feel a little bit uncomfortable talking about other people's age gap in a critical way.
But to his family in particular.
To her family
in particular, it's worrisome. She's very wealthy.
He came out of nowhere. Sorry, go ahead.
Yes, he's barely employed, although he does. He is a copywriter,
copy editor,
and
I think the thing is that they don't know much about him. Right. They don't know much about anybody in his life. There's a lot that looks suspicious, and her children are very protective of her, especially because there is a secret that they don't talk about, but there's a lot of flashbacks about a very traumatizing event that happened in their past, the family. So they're very protective of her, and for the entire 6 episodes, you keep going back and forth, not really knowing who's right, who's wrong, who are we rooting for? What's going on?
Is he a gold digger?
Is he or is he not? And I have to say...
And he lies.
He does lie about things, right?
So
that doesn't mean that he is a gold digger, but...
No.
Yeah.
And when caught, he explains from whence cometh the lie, but who knows?
But what I like is because when we started watching that, and we've recently watched other things, for better or worse, mostly worse, that had to do with people taking advantage of older women because supposedly they should be so grateful that a younger person takes an interest in them, that it can never be genuine. And it usually goes in a very specific direction. It's kind of a trope. It's kind of a genre. It's funny because we started watching it on my parents' recommendation, and they had just recommended Fall from Grace, which was another one of these movies that was awful. Sorry. I know some people enjoyed it. But anyway, after they recommended that, I was like, I don't know if I can trust you again. But then when they recommended this, they said, we promise you it's not what you think.
Their TV recommendations
usually
have
are
always been
excellent.
Spot on.
Yes.
Absolutely.
But because it was, again, of the genre, they had to really reassure me that it's not going to just be one of those movies. And I loved the ending. I thought it was very different from the genre, and it was much more interesting and more psychologically complex.
Absolutely.
And
yes, it didn't follow the
tropes.
The tropes, the long winding path. It always comes to a particular pot of gold or something else
at the end of the rainbow.
Yeah.
It was wonderful. Again, very bingeable, very moody, very beautiful,
gorgeous to look at. It's in Devon, I think, right?
Both the environment and Julia Ormond were beautiful to watch.
And again, the acting was very good. They all had very interesting chemistry. It was
So it's called Gold Digger. Go dig it from wherever.
I sure dug it.
It's either if you're in the UK, BBC One, or if you're elsewhere in the world, you never know. You might have it on Netflix, or otherwise just look for it. Highly recommend it. And those are our recommendations for this week. We will be back next week.
And they're really good. These
They are
really,
This
really
is primo
top
content.
flight
Yes.
recommendations.
Have a wonderful Valentine's Day. Regardless of what you believe about Valentine or whatever, or about the commercial nature of this, I just say love is love.
Love is
Let's
love.
celebrate love.
Mwah.
Mwah.